on how should they manage, measure, and extract useful insights from data to deliver superior business results. In the course of webinar, what both of us will try to address are some of the queries which we have seen students are asking, and even experienced people in the industry, they are also asking. Like, what is this data engineering and why there is a huge buzz around it? Why does it even become important to understand data in the post-corona world? Another question which we are constantly facing is that how is this data engineering different from data science? What kind of opportunities data engineering offer as a career? How to decide that whether you should be part of this exciting domain? What does it take to be a successful data engineer, right? So I'm proud to inform you that Latent View are the knowledge partner for this Praxis data engineering program. And Karthik is a key contributor to our final program design. So Karthik, welcome to the discussion. To start with, I'm sure that the audience will like to know, what do you think that the economy is heading post this coronavirus and this lockdown? And what does it mean for this whole world of data science and data engineering? On to you, Karthik.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Saurabh, and that was a very generous introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday morning. Really appreciate your time, and hope this discussion will be worth your time in terms of giving you an idea or demystify, as Dr. Saurabh said, in terms of what is data engineering, but more importantly, my success or the success of this webinar would be really to motivate people, right, in terms of saying, what data engineering is a wonderful field, right? And especially if you're a technology focused person, this is a great field to pursue with all its interesting complexities, challenges, and the rewards that come with it, right? So that's the overall objective. Before I get started on the question, hope you, your families, everybody is safe and healthy. These are unprecedented times. It's quite sad, right? People are getting sick and things like that. But I think the key thing is about hope, right? And as humans, we live on hope. We want to really be positive about things, and I'm sure we will come out of this in good shape, right? So hopefully that will happen pretty soon. Now, just talking of hope, I'll probably start relating it to the question. One of the things that we look at, or we kind of have that hope about the future, is learning, right? Is about learning new things, understanding the world better, right? Trying to figure out how could we solve some of the most complex problems out there in the world, right? Things like that. So that's what really excites most of us, and gives us hope that yes, we can be a big contributor, right? We can have a certain kind of a legacy towards making the world better, right? So that's the overall thing. And then coming specifically to this question as such, let's take a step back in terms of the pre-COVID environment, right? Which was probably 4-5 months back. There was definitely a lot of digital transformation that was happening across industries, right? Digital transformation might appear to be a fancy word, but this is something that we were all experiencing in our daily life, right? So the way we buy, sell, interact with one another, spend the leisure time, so on and so forth, right, have been profoundly changing given the digital scenarios, given the, you're able to hear me clearly, right? A little distracted by the change in. Dr. Sharo, you're able to hear me, right?
Yes, Karthik,
Excellent.
we are able to hear you.
Cool. Okay.
Karthik, can I just interrupt for a moment? I'll just let the participants know that they can post their questions in the chat. We'll take all the questions at the end of the session.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I was kind of talking about the whole digital transformation happening. And if you really look at it, a core part of digital transformation is engineering, right? And we will talk more about it in terms of where engineering fits in, where the whole aspect of data science fits in. But just going back to the question, so digital transformation was kind of happening across industries. Yes, it kind of started off with the whole digital native companies like the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, right? Whose whole business model was a digital business model. But if you look at industries, right, which I kind of look at banking, financial services, insurance, retail, CPG, these are traditional companies, traditional industries that have existed for a long time. Some of the companies in this space have existed for, I mean, decades and even 100 years or so, right? The key thing is everybody was looking to transform digitally, right, in order to take advantage of the fact that the world is changing, right? So there is embracing new opportunities kind of a thing. And also because of the fact that their status quo is not good enough. There are a lot more competition coming in, right? There are a lot more opportunities for these companies to take care of. So everybody was looking at how to transform digitally. What is the right way to do it? Because there's just so many options in front of them, right? So, so that was happening, right? Now with this COVID scenario, right, the COVID thing coming in, and again, this is something that we are experiencing in our daily lives, right? Ourselves, we are taking a lot of these digital meetings, and most of your meetings are all online. And if you have kids, all your school classes, everything is kind of online. We order so much more over the web, right? So you can see the impact of the whole digital thing happening much more rapidly during this period. So the corollary is that digital transformation was already big. It was happening. Now with this COVID striking, everybody is kind of saying, you know what, I might have had a 5% digital presence. I want to increase it to 15%. I want to increase it to 25%, right? Because that's the world, that's the way the world is moving. And the post-COVID, some of the habits that people have will kind of stick. People would have figured out, okay, this is probably a better way of doing things, right? And so they will kind of stick on with that habit. So the bottom line is, it'll get more accelerated in terms of this whole transformation. And that is where this is exciting in some sense for all of us on this call, where we are trying to see, okay, the convergence of data science and data engineering, right, can help us create much more credible, much more practical and effective solutions to solve some of those vexing problems out there, right? So the bottom line, as an answer to Dr. Shahro's question, is that digital transformation is going to accelerate. And in order to take advantage of that transformation or the acceleration, all of us should be equipped with a good understanding of data science techniques. And more importantly, as things scale up, you want to put systems in production, you need to understand how the engineering part of it needs to be developed, right? That's my kind of initial take on this, Dr. Shahro.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Karthik. I agree with you completely. See, while things are looking at pretty slow now, I think once we start getting back to normalcy, the data generation and hence the need for data scientists and data engineering should head north, right? In fact, if you see, I mean, this whole education thing, which was traditionally led by classroom kind of initiatives, the Gurukul kind of thing, this is slowly moving to online, right? So the entire focus should go digital, and that is when a lot of data generation will happen, data management will happen. So Karthik, can you just explain to our audience that in simple words, what is data engineering and why there is a buzz around it at this point of time? Why it is right now that we need to focus on this whole data engineering piece? On to you, Karthik.
Okay. So you started with a very interesting example, right? Of a person trying to search on the web, and then what if Google says, oh, I'm searching, come back after 2 hours, right? Absolutely not acceptable, correct? Now, what is happening behind the scenes in order to give you those precise results and the results coming out in a matter of seconds to you, right? Probably milliseconds right now, right? Is basically data engineering, right? So there is the preciseness of the answer is probably the data science part of it, right? The actual speed and the performance of the query, the way in which it is kind of given to you, right, is basically data engineering. That is the magic of data engineering at work. Just take a slightly different example. A very similar one is you get onto an Amazon or a Flipkart, right? You order, or what is shown to you as part of a recommendation engine, right? So there is sophisticated analytics, right? Data science. I mean, I'll keep using this analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, probably interchangeably. But that is the data science world, right? Where there are sophisticated techniques that figures out, okay, what should be the products recommended to you, okay? So that is under the cars. But what makes the whole thing extremely useful for all of us is the way that it gets delivered on a web interface, right? On a mobile interface. And again, at the speed of thought in some sense, and the ability to interact with it. There are a lot of complexity towards how do you deliver certain things to end users? How do you kind of take their feedback, right? And then improve, of course, things in the back end in terms of all these data science and all the sophisticated algorithms behind the scenes. But the real value is in term, the business value or the customer value is really enabled through the data engineering discipline, right? Or the things that you do from a data engineering standpoint. Okay, so again, we will delve into a little bit more details, tools, etc. But that is the broad example I want to start with. And why is there a lot of interest? I kind of alluded to in the previous in my previous answer, right? The world is transforming digitally. That is a very fundamental and an irreversible change, right? It is irreversible because there are a lot of positives in terms of transforming digitally. Of course, there are a lot of these moral, ethical consideration, which also adds to the complexity of the data engineering discipline itself. But the fact that if you do it responsibly and if you transform in a responsible manner, right? I think it is a very exciting field which can provide a lot of value to organizations as well as to people, right? Just I will leave it with this final whatever a thought, right? In terms of just look at the kind of platforms that we have to learn right now, correct? There are digital platforms provided by universities, provided by colleges, right? And there are a lot of other platforms, YouTube, etc., by which you can actually pick up specific skills also, right? That's all enabled through the digital transformation. So I will again go back and say digital transformation is enabling data engineering or accelerating data engineering. And then it's basically the convergence of data science and engineering, which is going to provide true business and customer value.
Sure, Karthik. See, a related question which I'm being asked almost everyone who's looking at data science is that what are the essential differences between the data science and the data engineering? Do they overlap? Do they compete or complement each other? While we know, as practitioners, we know, where the value of data engineering is. How does it really help the data science part? But again, let's take and get an expert view from your side. You are dealing with this day after day. Okay, let's get an expert view on from your side onto this. Onto you, Karthik.
Okay, cool. So the way I would think of it is in a fairly simple manner, right? And again, this is my point of view. Nothing is sacrosanct in some sense, right? This is based on my experience, my thought process, etc. The way I think of it is data science. The science is the operating word. So taking a step back, what is science? Science is all about figuring out, okay, you have something, okay? So you have something which you already have, which you know, right? And you try to find out some new things, right? In the case of data science, what you have is data, right? What you're trying to create, new information, right? New insights, it can be broadly classified as predictions, right? So data to predictions, or in other ways in terms of having what you have, right? Trying to create information or create insights that you don't have is what is data science all about, right? And once you look at it that way, there are of course a lot of complexities on how you do it. Is the information that you're creating the right information? How do you do experimentation to kind of figure out which out of the options or which of the insights is the right one to take for my problem, right? So that is the data science part of it, and the clue is really the science aspect of it, right? Look at the engineering side of the world, which is again a classic engineering discipline is all about, okay, I know certain things exist. There are some fundamental laws of the universe that exist, right? How do I bring them together to create value, right? So take a civil engineer, for example. There are fundamental laws in place, right? In terms of the stress, and again, I'm no civil engineer, but then the stress, the gravity, and a whole lot of fundamental laws. But what does a civil engineer do? Civil engineer basically takes all that and creates a wonderful bridge, right? And again, all of us are fascinated by all the engineering structures that have been built over time. So the crux of engineering is about taking things and building something that is long lasting, future proof, and it really provides value and also the ease of use, right? You want to really use some of the systems, right? I was talking about an engineering thing. Take an iPhone, right? Yes, there is a lot of research that is being done to figure out what iPhone is, but ease of use, the way it kind of attracts a customer in terms of usage of it, that is all the engineering discipline, right? So that is where I would start. Science and engineering is the fundamental difference, okay? Having said that, again, if you look around, it's science and engineering coming together in the right proportion that provides the ultimate value, right? Again, engineering cannot live in isolation. Science cannot live in isolation, because at the end of the day, you need to bring them together. Okay. So an appreciation for the combination of data science and data engineering is very important for analytics professionals. Okay. So that's very important. Having said that, each of these disciplines is a big area by itself, right? There are a lot of nuances, a lot of techniques. So if you go one level deeper into data science, if you go one level deeper into the engineering part of it, there are a wide variety of complexity, and that is why you need a specialization, right? So, and again, each of us choose our own way of thinking about it. So one is to develop an appreciation for the other side. If you're a data scientist, you need to have an appreciation for the engineering side of the world and how they build those systems which are long lasting. If you're on the engineering side, you need to have an appreciation for how do they really figure out what to develop? How do they really figure out what information is to be created from the data that they have, right? So that appreciation is required, but you will have got to specialize because each one has a lot of complexity behind it. So, and once you get into it, if you look at data engineering specifically, right? If you're technology oriented, right? You're saying, you know what, I have a ability to work with different tools and platforms, get things together, right? And different systems together, the data components together, you're really talking the engineering aspects of it, right? Again, there'll be more questions where I can get into the specifics of data engineering, but then this is where I would probably start off by saying this is the difference between data science and data engineering. One is all about, in some sense, figuring what to do, right? Newly, and it's more research oriented in some sense, right? The engineering part of it is to say, you know what, it's not as much research oriented. It's all about taking something that you have, but then combining it in the appropriate way to really look at the value that you can add to the end consumer or the end user of that particular system or a platform, right? So that's probably where I would start, Dr. Saurabh. What do you think? I mean, is that?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I could very well connect and resonate with some of the things you said. See, one is typically the engineering part, where it's the sauce, the ingredient they are getting prepared, and the other part is the science part of it. So, I mean, when people comes to me asking that, okay, I mean, what is this data science versus data engineering? I give them a very rudimentary example. I mean, when you have a great experience in a restaurant, it's not only the food which is there. The food is there on your table. You are getting the rich aroma from the food, the great taste. But there are a lot of other things also. There are many people who are getting the right kind of ingredients in making this food. You have the right kind of ambience. You have the right kind of a service, which all gives the great experience. So obviously, creating the food part, creating the food which you are consuming, that probably is something which I can attribute to the data science part. But getting this whole experience together, all the things coming in one big whole, that is where probably the data engineering part will come in, just to give you an analogy. So as we move forward in this broad area of data as an educator, I get this feeling that this data engineer is going to get progressively key to exploring the power of data for organizations, like the example that we already gave. So, I mean, without this data engineering part, your data science is not complete. See, Karthik, you are in this consulting role in this area, and I think you have built a big business of advising clients on making data work for them. Are you seeing a serious demand for data engineering professionals? In other words, I mean, if I would like to say, how do you look at data engineering as a career opportunity today as well as in the future? It will not be something which is short-lived. You may wish to start with what has been your experience with LatentView, with some interesting example for our audience, without obviously maintaining the business privacy policy that LatentView have in place. So let's hear it from your side. On to you, Karthik.
Okay, cool. Just to give an example, I mean, not an example, the fact to start with, right? So I've been with LatentView for around 4.5 years right now. We are a 14-year-old company, around 750, 800 people, right? And the core of the company, right from the start, almost till I would say 2.5 or 3 years back, was really focused on the data science part of it, which is about advising companies, providing those insights, right? And so the whole organization, if you look at it, 99% of the organization was basically data analyst, right? People with, data scientist, right? People with, of course, domain knowledge and function knowledge, because you need that to provide those insights. So that's what the organization was, right? Now, as I speak right now, we would have close to around 150 people out of the 700, 750 people, right, who are basically data engineers, right? And it was very interesting to see this transformation, because when I started off, right, and some of these verticals and things like that, most of the data science work was proof of concepts and pilots trying to derive that value. So there were two types of work that we used to do. One is use data science and provide or show that business value to customers, saying that, yes, if you can use this, then you can probably target your customers better. You can price your products better, right? You can probably alleviate some bottlenecks in the supply chain, etc. Okay, so those are the insights. Then the second part, or an evolution of that, was when the customer said, you know what, this is very valuable for us, so keep providing these insights to me, right? So we set up a small center of excellence where on a weekly basis, or whatever the appropriate time frame is, right? We used to provide those insights. Okay, you're running a campaign, here is the list of customers that you will have to target, because these people we think would probably be will have the highest probability, which is what your model would have predicted, highest probability to buy your product or service, right? Things like that. So we started providing those insights on an ongoing basis. Okay, the last 1.5, 2 years especially, customers have come back and said, you know what, you keep providing those insights, but it has set into a pattern, right? There are things that we have to get on an ongoing basis, right? Can't we build a system around it, right? Can't we engineer a system which will take into account all this data, whatever, provide this data to the model, right? Monitor the models, right? It's all aspects of engineering a system. And so we started doing a lot more in terms of productionizing those systems, right? The moment you will have to get it in production, you'll have to create customer facing applications, you'll have to embed your data science or analytical modules into customer facing ERP systems or CRM systems, etc. You're talking engineering, right? You're talking data engineering. Okay, so the last, so 150 of 750, 150 out of 750 is 20% of the organization, right? So right now, as we see, 20% of the organization is data engineering or data services, as we call it, and it is headed by a very knowledgeable person who has spent a lot of years in the industry. We started working with Praxis with the same intent, saying that if we can, okay, I'll come to the part about how we devised the curriculum. That was a very interesting kind of a story. Bottom line is, we said this is going to be a very, very important thing for us going forward. And it is a convergence that will make us really valuable in the customer's eyes, right? And so now we have a very strong practice. There are a lot of interesting learnings that we have on how to create this whole data engineering discipline. What should people be taught? Right? How do we teach them? How do we marry the one important thing, right? Which again goes back to the story of creating the curriculum, is the fact that it's not that organizations have started suddenly saying, I need to create a data infrastructure, right? I have spent 25 years, and out of which 20 years of that was all around building data warehouses, data marts, operational data stores, and things like that in organizations, very large ones at that, right? Your message queues, enterprise bus, right? These are all not new. Right? But now with the advent of analytics, when you start thinking about different types of data, right? What we call as transactions are increasing, which is the typical transactions that you do. Observations, which is all your sensor data kind of flowing in, which is a different type of data. Then you're talking about interactions, which is all your social data, e-commerce reviews and things like that. Each one of those categories is increasing, right? And so now you start thinking, okay, what should we teach? That's the second part of the story, which probably Dr. Shaurav will also, we will talk about that a little bit more. But bottom line is, we are seeing an increasing demand. And so we are very much focused on this space of increasing our stature, increasing our capability in the data engineering space. Partnering with Praxis is one attempt to do that. So bottom line again is, there's a fascinating space. I think it has a lot of rewarding career options. And personally, since I've come from a more data management discipline, I'm very, very excited about some of the new age technologies that are coming in, and some of the vexing problems that I used to face as a data warehousing architect and all that. You feel some of these NoSQL databases and things like that coming up, you feel, wow, I mean, if only we had that earlier, right? Or if you have thought of that earlier, it would have actually enhanced a lot of value. So a long answer, but hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, thanks, Karthik. I mean, that was very, very insightful. But now that we have established that data engineering will be a wonderful opportunity for career growth, let me again give you some insights, right? Right now, I mean, the burst from the industry is that for almost like every one data scientist, we need maybe 4 or even more data engineers. I'm sure that everyone or most of you are already using WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, before it was a Facebook product, was just an organization which had less than 30 people. A team of less than 30 people, very bright engineers, handling a massive platform which was responsible for this real-time communication, real-time transfer of these messages, audios, videos across the net. A small team of less than 30 people, and Facebook quickly realized the importance of this small local organization, and they paid some $19 billion, $19 billion to acquire that particular farm. And all that particular farm were doing, so they were not into data science per se, they were not into analytics per se, but all they were doing was they were managing this data very efficiently, very efficiently. Coming back to the same paradigm which I started off in the first place, how you would have felt if Google came back to you on the next day? Again, coming to the same thing, how would you feel that if you typed something on WhatsApp today and maybe it gets delivered in an hour? So all these things like WhatsApp, Facebook, they're almost real-time communication things. And that's again, thanks to all the data engineering work which has gone behind. And those were some of the things that Karthik was also mentioning, the real-time message passing things, the data pipelines. So let's address the next question, that what does it take to be a successful data engineer? We get calls from a host of people with diverse academic backgrounds, geographies, experiences, all wishing to write the data bus. Some of them are not very sure which path they should choose. Is there a data scientist or a data engineer? So Karthik, I mean, how does one decide? To me, what it seems, what my experience says is that it's the combination of the set of skills, knowledge, background, technical experience, and most importantly, the interest which one is having. But I'm sure that the audience here would like to want more concrete answer, a specific answer from someone who's into the thick of it, who's doing it successfully day after day, managing big clients, big problems, and coming up with successful solutions to them. So on to you, Karthik.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of hit the nail on the head, right? When you said it's all about a combination of different skills and the curiosity in terms of, okay, how do we do things better, right? That's a driving force for data science, for data engineering, and in general for any discipline, right? That you kind of look at, right? It may not even be a analytics or a computer, but anything deals with the curiosity to make things better, or the curiosity to learn and then have a way of making things better, right? Having said that, okay, I'll come back to the case study. I think you asked that question in the last, you asked that point in the last question. I'll come back to the case study towards the end, but let me first address this deciding between data science and data engineering, right? One thing I would like to say, as I said, is ultimately, if you can actually have a combination of skills, that would be ideal. Okay, so in the sense, again, it's not about the expertise. You could again have an appreciation for the other side, but go deeper into your area of expertise, right? So you could start as a data engineer. In fact, there are roles out there, right? Right now in organizations like Facebook and the Google and the Microsoft of the world, where they call it as an AI engineer or an ML engineer, right? Which is essentially a data scientist and a data engineer rolled into one, right? Obviously a highly skilled role, highly paid role, a very highly coveted role, but that is what people are looking at. Do you have the ability to understand the data science part of it, and can you be a data engineer, right? And you also know how to scale up those systems, etc., right? So that's a broad level. Of course, it takes years to kind of get up to that level. All I'm trying to say is you can always go in, start in one place and then move to the other side also. It's not that you cannot do that. But having said that, where do you start? If that is your question, then the way I would say this is, if you're looking at data science, then you need to be fairly clear that you have a facility for numbers. You should be interested in learning the math and the statistics part of it, right? And it is more about figuring, of course, you need to have very strong hands-on coding capability, programming capability, and things like that. Of course, things are getting automated there also. But then having said that, ability to understand the algorithms conceptually as well as putting it to use, right? So it's more like a research discipline, relatively speaking. Data science is more like a research discipline, right? Where you're trying to figure out, okay, what should change in what is the status quo? What should I change in the business, should I, right? And in order to make that change, is there anything that I can do with data, right? And so you talk about prediction models, you talk about clustering algorithms, you talk about deep learning models. It's all about trying to change something, right? And that requires a research kind of an attitude. On the other side, engineering is all about, or relatively more about, the technology aspect of it, right? If you are a guy who is very much interested in putting things together, right, as Lego blocks, taking the consideration of the users, taking all your, again, what are called as non-functional requirements, right? The performance aspect of it, the security aspects of it. There's just a whole lot of things that we need to care about. But if you're a guy who's more interested in putting things together in the appropriate manner, right, using all the technology platforms, and you're a guy who can learn new technologies very quickly, right? Because that is invariably going to happen in the data engineering space, where they will say, you know what, oh, DevOps, we started off with Jenkins as a platform, or you want to do, some kind of deployment, right? You start with, or you learn Ansible. They say, you know, Ansible is okay, but then Terraform is much better for this situation. So you need to have the ability to adapt to different types of technologies very quickly, right? And in that space, I would say broadly in the engineering space, there are two important things or two categories. One is the architecting skills, which is where I talk about putting things together. What is an appropriate platform? There are a whole lot of different choices, right? There are constraints in the business. So how do you put things in an optimized fashion and not over engineer things? That's another very, very interesting aspect of data engineering, that for a particular problem, you don't have to build the biggest of largest of stacks. You need to figure out what is the right fit which the business needs, and how do you gracefully evolve over a period of time, right? So these are things that you need to look at it from an architecting standpoint. Then of course the actual knowledge of the platforms and skills, because architecture is conceptual. In order to make it tangible and practical and implementable, you need to figure out what tool should I pick, right? You know, if I'm doing a CI/CD, which tool do I pick? If I have to pick a database, which one do I pick, right? If I have to do a message queue, for example, I'm dealing with streaming data, right? Do I pick up Kafka? Do I go with a classic MQ series? So you'll have to start thinking about what are the tools that you pick, right? So architecting skills and knowledge of different platforms and technologies, how do you bring them together, especially the big data and the cloud kind of infrastructure, is what the engineering aspect of it is. So those are the kind of skills that you would need from an engineering standpoint. Kind of pick those areas. But again, just to reinforce my point, I was basically a data management person. So when I got into LatentView, I was primarily approached from a data engineering side. I said, you know what, I know, of course, I've done some courses, I've taken some certifications and a little bit of data science stuff. But my whole thing was, I understand analytics at some level, but your infrastructure could be the bottleneck for many organizations, right? The weakest link is going to be your infrastructure, your pipelines, in order to implement analytics. So that was my positioning, right? And I'm happy because now I'm doing a lot of stuff on the engineering side. But again, now because of the fact that I'm with a data science company, right, or the company that's focused on analytics, I'm also kind of picking up different types of algorithms and kind of understanding some of those aspects. So all I'm trying to say is you can approach from any side and learn the other thing also over a period of time.
Wonderful, Karthik. Thanks. See, I mean, I think you have broadly touched upon all the points as to, I mean, what people, what are the kind of traits which we are looking at people when we are talking of this data engineering part. See, one thing, I mean, which we hear from the aspirants a lot, is that is this particular journey, will I be able to manage this particular journey on my own? How do I start this journey in the first place? Say, for example, there are people who are working as a tech resource for quite some time, maybe in the texting domain, maybe in the quality domain for quite some time. Or even there are students who are like fresh graduates, they have probably have a degree in mathematics or engineering or computer science. So how will they take the next step? Kartik, I mean, as you already mentioned, that you have built your career so successfully, and then having worked with, recruited, and trained so many professionals in this particular field, you've literally built up the data engineering practice in the organization. So, what are the kind of traits that you look for in those people? Where to first start the journey, and then how to make sure that they are valuable to the broader data science and the data engineering community. How do one start with that? Okay, on to you, Kartik.
Okay. Um, okay, so there are quite a few aspects of that. I'll start off with, in some sense, how do we discuss the curriculum aspect of it, right? Because that kind of gets into how do we think about the data engineering space and how was this curriculum crafted, right, with Praxis. And before that, what I would like to say from a learning perspective, my way of thinking about it is, uh, if you want to have good conceptual learning, right, it's better to go through a structured course, right? Because that will give you the fundamentals. It will make you more confident. It will tell you the whole spectrum of things that is possible, right? Specific skills, that's okay, right? There are lots of resources out there by which you want to pick a specific skill. I think it's a combination that really works, right? So, for example, I did a data science kind of a course with Upgrad, right? Basically to say, you know what, yes, I'm dealing with some of these things, but then I said I want to have that conceptual knowledge, which is very important for me to feel confident about this whole space of AI ML, right? So that's basically what I did. But for a specific algorithm, I want to learn specifically on a tool, right? Let's say, then I would probably pick up a Udemy course, because that will quickly teach me how to do specific tools or technologies. And so that combination, I think, is going to be very, very important. And especially in the data engineering space, the idea of, again, creating that curriculum with Praxis was to say, you know what, there are these conceptual inputs that we need to provide to people. So if you look at it, it has 3 pillars, right? The first 2 pillars are the conceptual pillars in some sense, right? The first 2 pillars talk about what are the legacy kind of systems that exist in an organization, right? Teach concepts of data modeling, right? Teach concepts around databases, right? A third normal form vis-a-vis dimensional modeling, right? How do you do classic data integration, ETL as they call it, right? What are the nuances of creating data integration kind of platforms and pipelines, etc. So that is what was focused on. The first part of the curriculum was focused on giving a good solid foundation to people that there are certain things that are fundamental, right, to data engineering, be it modeling skills, be it the process thinking that is associated with bringing things together, right? Things like that. The second part of that curriculum was focused on new age technologies, because there's just so many new things that have come up, right? In the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years or so, with the advent of cloud platforms, big data platforms, NoSQL databases, right? And also the different types of data that you're dealing with. What are some of those new age technologies, and how does it compare with some of the things that has been done traditionally before, right? So that again is a conceptual thing, in terms of, if you teach somebody a NoSQL database, right, you'll have to tell them, you know what, there is something called, most of these will not have ACID properties, right? There is something called eventual consistency. What is eventual consistency? Correct. So what is a CAP theorem? So people need to understand it if you're architecting those kinds of systems. That is a conceptual input that you provide as part of your second thing, new age technologies. What are the pros and cons of those technologies, right? The third aspect of it is, how do you bring them together? So the third part of the curriculum is all about how do you drive business applications, right? Where it's a combination of legacy systems, or in some extreme cases, it could be about transforming it completely to the cloud, etc. But more often than not, it'll be a situation where you work with some of those legacy systems and the fundamentals, bring new age technologies together, understand what is required in a data centric world, right, from a user perspective, or from a model and a machine learning or whatever perspective, and then bring it to use, right? Bring everything together. So that's the way the curriculum is kind of structured, which also tells a little bit about how we think about this space, right? We think the foundations and the fundamentals are very important. That is your modeling skills and process thinking skills, etc. Then there are these technology platforms, especially new age platforms, that are important. And the third aspect of it is how do you bring them together in order to deliver that kind of value, be it, a deep learning model or a time forecasting model. These things fundamentally won't change, right? I don't know whether I've addressed all parts of your question, but this is something which came to my mind when you said the skill sets, in some sense, the way we think about it.
Sure, Karthik. So again, I'll just pick up from where you left. So one part is the skill set part, that how to get on with this particular journey. Okay. So having said that, you have perfectly elaborated the kind of technical things which will be covered, which someone needs to know when someone is embarking on this data engineering journey. So then comes the big dilemma part which aspirants face, particularly the working professional. As I said that some people, they are probably working in the same domain like your testing or your quality control for year after year. There are many people, who are working in the IT field for quite some time. Probably they have got stagnated over the year, career is not moving up. Or then there are fresh students who have just passed out from their technical degrees like engineering, BCA, MCA. So they're also in a dilemma as to what they should do. Should they just pick up a job which comes their way, or they should take this risk of maybe upskilling themselves and probably trying to embark on this data journey, right? So in that way, what is that they should opt out for? Because you named some things like you did some courses from Udemy, you did something from Upgrad. So, what should be the ideal program? Is it a weekend program, some kind of an online program, part-time kind of program, or a full-time kind of program? Because the problem with a full-time program is that they either have to take a sabbatical, or they might have to forego their job or some opportunity which is there, right? See, personally, my take is that this whole data field, be it data science or data engineer, that's a very deep field. It's a very deep field, and if you put your focus in this particular field, there's so much things to learn, so much techniques to learn, so much technologies to learn, and your value, it actually increases exponentially as you get exposed to so many different technologies, so many different processes, things. See, I'm sure there are some pros and cons of, as I said, that a part-time program versus a full-time program. But here, again, once again, I'm depending on you for the right guidance here, right? Once again, as a key contributor to this Praxis data science, data engineering program, how do you think that with this mindset of a full-time program, which takes you through a lot of rigor, a lot of learning, a lot of, again, building new things, maybe unlearning few things which you have learned and relearn things, how would it help in them in their journey? Okay, on to you, Karthik.
Okay. So this is a slightly difficult question in the sense that it is very situation dependent, right? You can't really say either do a full-time course or a part-time course and things like that, right? So having said that, the way I think about it is the more structured the course, right? And I'm talking of the structure being a full-time program probably has the best possible structure, right? Because you're going to be with people, you have a lot of peer learning, you're focused on that, you're not distracted by a lot of other things, right? And there is a very rigorous process by which you learn the stuff. So if you put that on one end of the spectrum, then there is of course the Udemy kind of a thing, which is all self-paced, you learn on your own, right? That is the other side of the spectrum, right? Which is fairly unstructured. You will have to build your structure on your own, and of course you're going to get distracted all the time. And again, there are some statistics which say that, right? If you take a MOOC, 5% of the people complete it, right? Because it is natural that you have other things, other priorities and stuff like that. So you individually, you need to figure out where you are in that spectrum of possibilities, right? Again, somewhere in the middle of the spectrum is your weekend kind of courses where you just go to a class on a Saturday or a Sunday and things like that, right? So the structured course, which is a full-time course, will help you get to the things much faster, much more deeper, and I believe it gives you a lot more confidence of the fact that, okay, certain things, but you also know in some sense what are out there, which is all evolving, and you have to keep a tab on it, right? You kind of get a complete picture if you go through a far more structured course as opposed to a more unstructured course, right? Having said that, of course, there are a lot of other variables into the mix, right? Because your personal situation, the kind of job that you're working in, things like that will basically influence which one is probably a better fit for you. Okay, so that's probably what I would say of that, of which type of course that you need to pick. Obviously, if you have the ability to do a full-time course, and especially in this space of data engineering, which I am very confident has a huge impact, is going to have a huge impact on the future as more and more, as I said, I keep going to this digital thing, because that's something which is the most practical aspect of it that we all face. If things are going to get digital, there is no getting away from it. In fact, I would say with all this COVID and things like that, it will just accelerate, right? So given that, if you want to have, so for a, again, I'm just taking an example, might not be the right way to think about it, but just let me put it out. Let's say you're a 5-year experienced person, right? You've done well in your career so far, right? You've worked in different in specific areas of technologies, and you've not necessarily have worked in data oriented technologies, but you're basically a technology person who can learn stuff. You're very confident that you can pick up coding skills, because I've seen a lot of testing people are very good on programming techniques, because they would have done automation testing. They would have quickly learned specific languages and things like that. So if you're that kind of a person, and if you can actually afford a full-time course, I'm not talking about money here, it's basically the time I'm talking of, then probably this is the right time to invest. So anywhere between 5 to 10 years of experience, you have another 20 years in your career to kind of go, 20, 25 years or even more, right? When things are going to accelerate, I think if you catch on to this wave much faster, then you're putting yourself at a level where you can say, you know what, I can solve some of those complex problems. So you can have a much more, I mean, you have that kind of a differentiator, right? The more experienced you are, 10, 12, 15 years, there are a lot of other variables into the mix. You have an EMI to probably pay for, right? Things like that. In which case, it's basically, yes, it will be good to do a full-time course, but you will have to think of probably options which will come into the mix, right? So that's the way I kind of see it. So the sweet spot in some sense, I would say, is 3-5 years experience to anywhere between 10-12 years of experience. If you can actually spend that time to do a full-time course, probably this is the best time to do it, right? Anything below that, you can think about, oh, should I wait for some more time, right? Because let me get the feel for what the industry is all about. What am I really interested in, right? In order to get on to this, probably 2-3 years would be ideal, right? Or on the other side, if you're more than 12 years, then again, you will have to probably weigh the different options and then probably look at a full-time kind of a course. That's, I mean, does that sound right? I mean, I was just thinking aloud in terms of how do you make that choice.
So Karthik, see, my experience is that, see, individuals do face this dilemma all the time, right? So there is always a dilemma after engineering or after my graduation. Should I mean, upskill myself more, do some new course, or just join the job which comes into my way in the very first place? So that's a continuous dilemma that we have to face, we have to deal with, and yeah, I think opting for a full-time program is a bold move, but people who have made that move, they never regretted doing it. So personally, I can tell for myself. So I never regret doing the PhD, which I did. But again, fortunately, I did not have a EMI problem at that point of time. In fact, I was not even eligible for an EMI. The subprime crisis was there. No one was ready to give some loans. That's a different thing. But again, just coming back. So I mean, in terms of spending your time on a full-time program, what happens is that a good time gets spent focusing on the concepts, projects, right? All these tools, technologies. So I literally saw this whole cloud evolution, right from the term was being coined, cloud computing, all the way to Amazon taking the big crown for that. I literally saw it grow in front of my eyes, having worked with it for some time, and that was all because I was fully dedicated or focused on a full-time piece. But again, I think this entire ecosystem, so it's not only the full-time thing, it's the entire ecosystem which is there, right? The fact your faculty is there, peers are there, And all this catalyzes the learning process.
Absolutely.
Some of these concepts here, they are really very difficult to learn and digest. And if you're in some kind of a part-time program or online, you probably, might not give you're really good at it at this. And learning this, when once someone is there in a full-time system, when this ecosystem is there with friends and everyone, so learning by doing it, learning with the help of faculty who's always there, learning with the help of some peer groups there, that helps tremendously in the workplace as well. Now, adding with that is the placement thing. So with part-time programs, with weekend things, it's just a knowledge building. The placement as doesn't kick in out there.
Correct.
So getting the job, first job in the data field is quite difficult. Karthik, you have been interviewing people a lot. So I think you can probably tell that. But again, what happens is when you are in a campus, you are there in the ecosystem, the entry in this particular field, it just becomes so smooth. So one more question that's there in everyone's mind, Karthik, is that, is this a good time to embark on this journey? When things are not very clear, the future looks quite unpredictable. Should someone take embark on this particular journey or not? That is something which probably I'd like to hear from your side. On to you, Karthik.
Okay. Let me cite my own personal experience, because I heard you kind of talk about your mindset when you took up that PhD program, right? So after my engineering, I actually spent around 4 years in the IT industry, right, working, and I was working with SAP Labs at that time, which was fairly a coveted job in 1998. And then there was this dilemma, right? Then I got a chance to do my MBA at IIM Calcutta. There was this thing about, okay, I'm going to be a technology person, because I really liked programming and technology and things like that right from my kind of college days. I said, okay, I'm already in this kind of domain, and it was pretty good. The company was doing very well, etc. Do I need to do an MBA, right? I went ahead and did a full-time course at IIM Calcutta, right, at that point in time. Yes, I had to forego certain things in terms of whatever, right, the money, etc., etc. But that's probably a couple of years I feel very well spent, right? Because now looking back at that point in time, I don't know how I took that decision. Frankly, I can't recollect what was going through in my mind. But I think I took a more long-term kind of a view and said, you know what, if you're interested in technology, then the real effect of technology is in solving business problems, right? And unless you kind of go through a course which teaches you the fundamentals of business, you will not be as curious about business aspects as, it's one thing to read a kind of a marketing thing and all that, but going through a structured course really helped me to kind of say, you know what, I have a grounding in terms of understanding some of those fundamental business concepts. Yes, because the moment I came out, I focused on technology again, right? I got into warehousing, did some technology consulting and all that. So what I'm trying to kind of say is here is that spending time in a full-time course, the call we need to take is not based on immediate requirements or the short-term views. It's slightly more a long-term view, right? A medium-term to a long-term view, right? In terms of saying, what do you really want to do? What are you really interested in? And the moment I answered that question to myself, saying that my aim is to use technology to solve business problems, I said, okay, now I have to learn aspects of business, right, in order to figure out how to use technology better, right? If my answer to that question at that point in time was I need to go deeper into databases and VLSI design and things like that, I would have probably stuck to the whatever. I would have probably gone off with an MS in computer science and gone in a different direction. So it's important to kind of figure out what you want to do. And this question of picking up data engineering skills and things like that is one to do with your interest areas, right? The only thing I would request people to do is to take a more medium term to a long term view. If you think about it a very short term basis, you will not probably come to the right conclusion, right? But if you take a more long term view, that is what they say of these stock, investing in stocks also, right? That if you want to time in terms of when to sell or buy, then yes, that's a different aspect of it. You need to figure out what is the right time you be a day trader, right? But then many people basically look at this whole thing of the fundamentals of stocks, right? And the fundamentals of data engineering, or the stock of data engineering, I would say, is very, very strong. It will grow in the future. And so if you can again, as I said, afford the time to do a course, then this is probably the right time to do it, because this will only get better and better as we go along. So the sooner you get into this space, you have a much bigger or a longer runway in terms of figuring out what exactly you want to do and get to the right opportunities. Right. So the answer to that question in some sense is, yes, there'll be a lot of short-term variables, short-term this thing, but the call to do a course and what type of a course that you want to do, whether you want to get into a domain, right, should be a little bit more of a long-term kind of a basis. And you're absolutely right, Dr. Shaurav, in terms of a full-time course will help you to get to the jobs and the careers much, much faster. Otherwise, you're only talking about some of those knowledge aspects. You can gain knowledge out of an online course, but you can really change your career only through a proper structured program, right? Or a full-time course, right? Typically. Shaurav, you're on, Dr. Shaurav, you're on mute. We are not able to hear you. Sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Are others able to hear Dr. Shaurav? I see that you're on mute. Okay. Hello, am I audible? Okay.
Yes, Karthik, you are audible. I have
Yeah,
unmuted Saurav.
yeah. I think now, right now it's on, right? For
Yeah,
some
it's on.
technical, this thing, it was not getting on. Yeah, I think, yeah, sorry for the convenience. So, like, I mean, as we see this continued interest among people, I think that, like, my personal belief that it's the right time, the ideal time for basically. See, Karthik, the thing is that, I mean, I think both of us, we are so much passionate about this whole data field, data science, data engineering. I think we can talk about this for the whole day without getting
Absolutely.
tired. But again, obviously, you've seen that right now the moderator, they would like us go on mute. So fine, Karthik. Let's take the closing remarks from your side, and then probably I'll ask the moderators to give us some of the questions, to read out some of the questions which people have been asking. And between Karthik and myself, we'll try to answer some of those questions for the participants. So on to you, Karthik, for the closing remarks. I'll
Okay.
just mute myself.
Okay. So again, as you said, I can go on and on talking about this space because I find it terribly exciting, and I'm fortunate in some sense to say, even after 24, 25 years in the industry, I feel that there are so many things that you can do within this space that it is very exciting for me, right? Personally. Uh, so from that standpoint, this is a great time to kind of invest in the data space. This will only grow. You can, I mean, some sense, I can say with a lot of confirmation that the whole data space is going to grow. Right? There are there's going to be a lot of requirements, a lot of different, and it's not about just uh, working on a job, right? It's also about if you want to start your own company, for example, right? If you want to do your own consulting, you want to do freelancing, there is no better area and space than data related areas, right? Be it data science or data engineering, for you to really have a rewarding career and very interesting things to do. And within that space, as we spoke about at some level, there are these two areas. I think, as I said, appreciation for each other is very important. But data engineering, again, personally, because of my background, data engineering offers, again, a lot of scope to people, a lot of interesting things to solve. And it's all about providing that complete business value to the end user. If that is what you're focused on, saying that whatever systems exist in environment, at the end of the day, I should have the ability to get things together and provide that kind of an experience and that kind of a value to the end user. Data engineering is your best possible avenue and the best tools that you can have in your repertoire in order to make that possible. So be curious, be motivated about the space. I think if you invest the time and effort to learn some of this thing, I personally feel it'll make for a very rewarding career, and we are only scratching the surface of what is possible right now at this juncture. Yeah, so I kind of stop there, Dr. Sharo.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I think it was a wonderful session which we had. Now let's come to the question part. So from the this thing, I have already got one question which the moderator, Maushimi, she just posted me. I think this is we have broadly answered this question. What is the roadmap and skill set to becoming a data engineer? Karthik, you can probably take that question.
Okay, so as I said, there are some foundational skills. So think of it like we talk about data engineering, pipelines, etc. But the end of the day, it is all about how to acquire data, right? Where do you store the data? How do you process the data, and how do you deploy any kind of a system, right? So the production. So these are the different aspects of it. So you need to have good, strong skills, conceptual skills that by which you can understand a business situation, have the ability to work with databases, right? Where do you store the data? What type of databases? And how do you process the data, right? The processing aspect of it is about creating data pipelines, right? Or what is called as ETL programs in order to integrate the data, do data quality kind of checks. How do you govern the data? So again, these are the conceptual ideas that you need to have. And then coming to the actual tools, again, there is a choice of tools that are available. And I feel for data engineering specifically, you need to be aware of the big data and the cloud platforms, because that is where a lot of things are going. All the analytics implementations and all that have a good amount of big data and cloud involved in the mix. So you need to pick up some specific skills around the big data and cloud. And again, now we can just call it as cloud platforms, because most of the cloud platforms have big data capabilities embedded within them, right? So those are some of the skills that you need to look for. And then there is a third aspect of picking up skills from a user experience and the front end, right, interfaces that will interface with the end customer. So data engineering is this wide, and that is what makes it exciting also, right? There's a back end piece to it in terms of bringing all the data together, organizing the data, etc., processing it and things like that. There is a front end aspect to it of bringing all that data to the end user, which could be a front end full stack, right? Angular, React, but again, there are technologies out there. There are also these kinds of web applications, mobile applications that you have got to build. So that's another aspect of data engineering skills, right? Yeah,
Sure,
and what skill is, of course, bringing everything together with a project management kind of a framework, right? How you have those skills in order to bring everything together and drive those products and projects. Those are the important skills.
Yeah, sure. So the next question which a moderator had just asked me is that, what is the roadmap for data engineering at Praxis? Is it hands-on or theory, real case studies, etc.? What exactly is this? Karthik, with your permission, I'll take this question.
Yeah.
So for the data engineering course that we have designed, again, thanks to Karthik, a lot of input came from his team and his organization as well. So, I mean, the course that we have here, it's about 550 hours of full-time course, and it's geared towards making the participants, the students, the practitioners, for handling massive amount of enterprise data set, right? And then, see, I mean, I think Karthik, you answered this, but again, let me reiterate that. So the first thing which we have tried to answer in this particular course is working with the traditional data. Before even we come to those geeky terms like those data pipelines, Hadoop, all these things. So the first thing that we have tried to demystify in this particular program is the traditional data part. The very concept of data modeling, something to do with algorithms, data structure, the relation databases, SQL programming, the concept of ETL, extract, transformation, load, data warehousing. These are some of the things which either a traditional IT professional is already working, or people who have studied engineering or BCA, MCA, they have studied in sometimes in the course of their education, right? So that is how what we first introduce the participants with, the working with the traditional data part. That actually covers our first trimester. The next trimester is when this engineering platform comes in. That was the part which Karthik was saying. So introduction to the Hadoop ecosystem, all the NoSQL databases where the data is not stored in rows and columns. How do you store image kind of data? How do you store video data? Some middlewares. How do you get this data pipelines in place? What is it that, I mean, there's so fast message passing between users across the world in the platforms like your WhatsApp or Facebook. So those data platforms will be the focus in this next. Okay. Also, we'll handle some part of the data visualization, because with data visualization, what happens is that you're able to see actually the outcome from a massive amount of data. What kind of a pattern it is holding? If there's some anomaly. Those are some of the things that you can see. So that's also something which will be done in the second part of the course. And the last part of the course is building enterprise business on cloud. This cloud thing, as I was saying, yes, really taken the industry by storm. And most of the large businesses right now, they are not having their own in-house systems, but most of it's being managed in the cloud. So here, just to make the people business savvy, the first thing we'll start off in this particular module is how the big enterprises, they generate data. What's the data generation process? What's the evolution, and how it can move from a traditional on-premise data to that in the cloud. And then some of the data pipelines which Karthik was talking about, that will also form in this particular part. There's a lot of talking about IoT data, sensor data. I'm sure most of you or many of you have been using the likes of those Amazon's Alexa or maybe those Google's voice assistant. So how they are managing the data, how to read data from those kind of devices are something that will touch upon. Obviously, data lake. So first we came from this data warehousing, then data lake. Right now, so they are also saying data swamp. How you can build a data lake on the cloud is something which we'll talk about, and a very important thing which many of the people just they learn on the in the organization is the data security and privacy. I mean, how to maintain the security and privacy of business critical data. That is what will be covered in the last term, and then it will all culminate into a capstone project, which will make the students, the participants, very much familiar with the kind of processes, systems, structures in place, which they will have to do in the industry, right? So that is typically what we will cover in the particular course. That is the roadmap which we have. A lot of real life case studies, which I was discussing. That, I mean, what kind of a data engineering structure does Google have? So some kind of insight into it. What kind of a platform does Facebook use? So some of those things will be covered in this particular part. That is what we'll try to cover in this one, and it's a totally a hands-on thing. There'll be a very good balance between the theory part as well as the hands-on part, but the focus is more on the hands-on piece. So that is what we have here. Okay. So the next question which just came to me is that how a traditional IT professional who has IT experience but no data experience can move to data engineering. Will the experience get valued? Will they be able to move up the career ladder? So that's a question which just came to me. I'll answer first part of the question, Karthik, and then probably I'll give it to you. See, whenever you talk of an IT professional, the IT, the very term itself is information technology. So information is the core of IT. So earlier, in the earlier days, what used to happen was we were mainly focused on just the information management part of it, using large enterprise systems. In data engineering, what we actually do is we ask the participants, we ask the learners to look more into the data part. Because see, all the different kind of data, they are not amenable to the different systems which are out there. Traditionally, unfortunately, that's a sad truth, that what big enterprises have been trying to do is that they are saying that, okay, whatever systems we have put in place, that's the panacea for everything. Our system will help you work with any kind of data that you are having. Probably not 100% true. So here, a traditional IT professional, what he or she will do is, they will see that, okay, depending on the data, how do you formulate the data policy itself? depending on the speed of the data, the volume of the data, the kind of data which is getting generated, the patterns in the data, what kind of a different architecture that you can have in place, and then how to tie and stitch it together so that at the end of the day, the business, it gets a very smooth journey, a very smooth experience. That is what is the something which I feel. But again, Karthik, you can probably add some more parts to it. How can a traditional IT professional uh, will gain some more value in this data engineering field?
Cool. Okay. So yeah, I agree with all your points, Dr. Shara. Just a few ideas, right? And especially the way, again, I've spent a lot of time creating those kinds of enterprise platforms and from an IT standpoint. What interestingly, what we are seeing when we say data engineering in a data and an analytics context is that think of it like two parts of an enterprise, right? So one is the IT is more focused on creating all the enterprise IT assets, right? And so it is all about creating that single source of data which can be leveraged across the organization, right? Or creating a cloud platform by which you can actually get all the data together, etc., etc. So these are enterprise data assets that are created by the IT organization. That's what their focus is, right? Whereas if you look at the business side of the world, the expectation is that business will be able to leverage its enterprise data to get their value, right? But in many cases, there is a kind of a disconnect because what the business needs is not directly provided by this enterprise asset. So you need to actually do something in order to provide that business value. So think of it like the second part of that story. Okay. And so many of us would have faced this, right? In the industry, the business IT disconnect and business saying IT is not supporting them and IT is saying you're coming up with so many dynamic requests that I can't support and things like that. The disconnect basically happens because IT is focused on creating those enterprise assets in the best possible manner, right? Businesses focus is it might not be the best, but I need to get this information today for me to set the price or for me to do something at the store level, right? So there is that disconnect. And I feel the beauty of data engineering is it can help you operate at both these levels, right? One, you can work on the IT side of the world. You're talking about a cloud transformation. It is about creating enterprise assets on a bigger scale on a different platform. So you have worked with organizations like that where we have said, you know what, your existing data warehouse, right, which is used by different departments, is going to move to the AWS infrastructure completely, right? You create a data lake, you create a lot of different components on the cloud, and basically transform the enterprise asset onto the cloud. That aspect of it is also data engineering. The other aspect, which is very interesting in terms of helping businesses, right, get value from data by hooking up to the enterprise data asset. So typically what happens in many cases for us is there are engagements where the businesses approach us. When I say business, the marketing department or the supply chain department who are interested in getting value from data, they approach us and say, oh, we want this kind of, we have this requirement, right? Where we want to analyze all the data and identify what is the customer lifetime value in order to target customers for a campaign, right? Or to provide the right offers to customers, what offers should we provide, things like that. There are a lot of these business problems that they come to us with and say, you know what, we are not really able to use the enterprise assets or it is just very cumbersome to use it. Okay. So we come in and help them figure out what exists as part of their enterprise data assets, right? What do they require in terms of business value and either create pipelines or new data structures in order to make that, in order to help them derive that value, right? So that is where there's a lot of exciting things happening. As an IT professional, you need not be restricted. If you learn some of these techniques and things like that, you need not be restricted to creating just those data assets. But now you're now also moving to the other side and saying that how do I really use these enterprise assets to create value for my customers using all the data, right, which they really want to use, right? You get exposure or you get that opportunity to work on the other side of the problem also. And of course, these are very highly, tightly integrated situations. But if you kind of take this apart, there are very interesting problems on these two sides. Just to conclude my thought there, again, having spent a lot of years in IT, typically experimentation is not a word that IT would like, right? IT would want to say, I want to build the best possible infrastructure. I don't want to experiment with things because for me, It is about truth. It is about securing my data, right? So that is what IT will focus on, as relatively speaking, lesser on experimentation, more on getting the best possible practices, right? Whereas if we look at the business side of the world, they want to experiment. They want sandboxes by which they want to pull data. They want to pull one external data. They want to look at syndicated data, combine with enterprise data, do lots of different things, right? And so that means a lot of sandbox type experimentation, which is typically not provided by enterprise IT because they have a lot of other problems to solve. Now, if you learn some of these data engineering aspects, you can possibly play in both these different areas, right? And this is something that we are learning as we go along, and that's why I wanted to point that out, because seeing it distinctly actually creates a lot more different use cases where you can leverage some of these technologies.
Sure, sure, Karthik. I think we have just time for another one or two questions. We have to wrap up. Huh? But yeah, so the next question which I've got is that prior work experience for the Praxis data engineering program. Is it a substitute for MBA? Okay, so I think Karthik has already answered it. Again, let me reiterate the fact that in terms of the prior work experience, some amount of experience in the technical field, it does make a lot of sense. Typically, I mean, someone who's non-technical or doesn't have too much of a liking or affinity for systems will not find this particular program suitable for them. But otherwise, anyone who has a lot of interest in technology, who wants to pick up new technology, as Karthik was saying, I mean, every day he's learning at his level. Every day he's learning. So I think that's a big testimony to the fact that you continuously need to get your hands dirty. You continuously need to learn, and having an experience in the IT domain will help you a lot. But well, is it a substitute for MBA? I don't think so. See, I mean, see, Karthik has already done a MBA from Calcutta, and see, these are two different job functions. And MBA will help you to probably gain some kind of insight in the business functions, and then it will also help you I mean probably focus more deeply in some of the other aspects of business. So coming to the data engineering part, so that is, see, I mean, the core term is engineering, right? So it has to do more with engineering. It has to do a lot with modeling. It has to do a lot with managing the data systems in place. So if you are trying to say that, okay, I mean, MBA is also management, here is also management is there, yeah, I mean, that's a different thing. But here, the only thing that you are going to manage are a lot of data and a lot of systems which processes those data. So obviously, I mean, this is not a MBA. Uh, we don't know. I mean, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll actually see like there is a MBA in data science. I'm seeing that a lot. So maybe there might be an MBA in data engineering. But again, at this point of time, this is not a MBA course. I think I have just enough time for one more question. I'll just look into the next question. How different domains like supply chain, pharma are using data engineering, and how cloud computing plays a big role in data engineering. I think, Karthik, if you can take this one. We just have a little time. If you can just give some insight on this one.
Okay, I'll answer the second part of the question. Cloud is everywhere, right? Cloud has been a major disruptor and it has enabled all different types of organizations to take advantage of data, right? So there are smaller organizations that use the power of the cloud to derive value from data. There are larger organizations that are also leveraging the power of the cloud. In my 4 years of LatentView, I haven't seen any implementation which doesn't touch the cloud in one way or the other. It could be a private cloud, public cloud. There are a lot of advantages with the cloud infrastructure that makes it very interesting, right? Value prop for many of the organizations. So cloud is everywhere. So learning, if you're getting onto the technology bandwagon, it's very, very important that we have a view of the cloud infrastructure. Where is it headed? What are some of the good things and some of the limitations with the cloud? So, and again, privacy, security takes a lot more gains a lot more importance, right? When you're talking about cloud infrastructures and all that. So I would say that in some sense, if you're a technology professional, it's becoming almost mandatory that you need to have a good view of the cloud platforms and components and things like that. And I think it's very, very exciting, very interesting space that almost every technology person would love aspects of the cloud that are out there, right? In terms of domains, I think all domains are going to get impacted, right, with the cloud. but there is probably going to be a kind of a maturity curve of sorts, right? Different organizations will kind of adapt some of these new age technology platforms at different levels. So for example, if I look at my space of, we look at retail, CPG and all that, they are more amenable to cloud and big data platforms kind of stuff. Finance, insurance, etc. Interestingly, they are also embracing the cloud quite a bit, right? But they will be a lot more guarded in terms of what areas of the cloud can I, for example, if it's marketing, they don't have a problem, right? But if it's about the core customer data, they are a little guarded and say, okay, should I still leverage my on-prem infrastructure, which is a lot more, at least they have an idea of the security aspects of it. But that is also changing. Almost all the new projects that we are doing, in fact, we get a little surprised when a large bank kind of comes to us and says, you know what, we want to move to the cloud, right? So we asked that question a couple of times, saying, okay, you're sure you want us to evaluate, you want us to provide you different points of view, etc. And they say, you know what, no, we have a private cloud, we're very comfortable with that. In fact, cloud offers us much better security, right? Because that is the beauty of the whole system. You basically think on-prem, I'm more secure. Actually, no, you're probably more secure on the cloud, because your Amazons and the Googles of the world are providing those kind of expertise in order to secure our data on the cloud and things like that. So I think it's going to, this thing is happening across industries. Yes, some of those industries which is kind of not as much regulated and things like that will start embracing all these new age data engineering things. I shouldn't say start, they've already started embracing it. And that is why we have grown from almost 0% to 20% of our strength in data engineering. And if you see some of those IT companies, right, the big, large TCS, Cognizance of the world, they are also embracing this whole digital transformation piece in a very, very big way, right? That's because across industries, this is a trend. Yes, it will happen. Probably the level of maturity will improve over a period of time. But again, as a professional, our idea is to say, you know what, can I learn some of these foundational things so that I can start applying it? Nothing is given. I mean, we also don't want that situation where something is given to us directly, right? We learn all the foundations, the fundamentals. There are these 15 options that are available, and you are the person who's trying to figure out what is the best option to choose for an organization to move forward. That gives us a career. That is the right way to kind of think about how do we build it in the best possible manner. So my final words are, these are very, very exciting times in the whole data space. Data science and data engineering. And so if you're more of a technology oriented person wanting to build systems and platforms, data engineering is the way to go.
Sure,
So with that, I will hand it over to you, Dr. Sharad.
Yeah, I mean, we are already past the time. There's only one last question, which probably I'll only answer this. What's the required qualification for data engineering course? I think we have answered this particular question again and again. But again, let me just reinforce that. I mean, let me end this. Let me do the ending note. So so anyone who has a high acumen for technology, that's the required qualification. You have a high acumen for technology. You love learning new systems. You love picking up new technology. Those are probably the right candidates, right people for data engineering. But again, having said this, in terms of a qualification, a traditional degree kind of qualification, if you're talking about, then probably people who have a degree in technology, people who have probably done things like a BCA or a MCA or a engineering, or even someone who has done a bachelor's in computer science. So those are probably, or IT, those are probably some of the more favored bachelor's degree to have with a advanced diploma in data engineering. But again, having said this, said that, I'll probably try to look at people who are interested in this particular field on a case-to-case basis, and then determine. Because again, this field is new. There's a lot of demand in the industry, which again the academics is not even able to cater. So yeah, we'll probably take a shot at that in that way, right? So yeah, that is, I think, the last question. So I'll just hand it over to, so Karthik, just thanks. I mean, I also learned a lot of things from you today, and I believe it was a wonderful session for every one of us. We learned a lot. But yeah, I'll hand it over to the moderator. And yeah, that's all from my side. Any further questions, please get in touch with Praxis, and we'll be happy to answer whatever more questions that you're having. So on to you, moderator, to you, Praxis team.
Thank you, Dr. Saurav, and thank you, Karthikeyan, for such an enriching session. I guess all the participants have a lot to take in after this session. So any sort of questions that you might have that we haven't been able to take up in this session, you can post it to the admissions@praxis.ac.in. And so I will close this particular session for today. So thank you all for attending this session.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very
Be
much.
safe. Be with family. Stay protected. And never stop learning. That's the last thing from my side.
Absolutely. Never stop
Take,
learning.
take care. Have a nice weekend.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Pleasure.